She delivered the statement with such cold detachment, as though my 7-year-old's modest aspirations were utterly trivial. They require it more, her declaration wounded me more profoundly than the actual appropriation of the cash. My son's small hands were still gripping the empty ceramic vessel when I entered the main living area. The coinage was gone, the paper currency vanished, and my sister Lisa sat there, radiating utter complacency, her new bracelets sparkling, acquired with capital that was unequivocally not his. My son's tears obscured everything except the brutal, clear reality. I was absolutely unwilling to tolerate this serious infraction. I did not erupt in fury. I refused to engage in a fruitless dispute. My parents were already subtly disapproving, taking her side, their perpetual stance. She is a single mother. Her progeny are more in need, they rationalized, as if that somehow sanctified theft from a child. I suppressed every burning impulse, every surge of indignation, and instead offered a controlled smile. That smile marked the initial maneuver of my calculated strategy. This was not the first instance of Lisa taking what didn't belong to her. During our youth, she appropriated attention, praise, and eventually, my trust. I always made excuses for her. That's simply her disposition. But, witnessing her inform my son that his hard-earned savings were insignificant, I finally understood that I had been passively defending a parasite. She never assimilated the concept of boundaries because no one ever enforced them. This time, the responsibility for her education would fall to me. That evening, I accessed the banking application linked to my parents' joint account. Years ago, I had established their online access for them, and they had entrusted me with all their confidential passwords. My sister Lisa utilized that exact account for her consistent transfers, the financial favors she insisted upon, the debts my parents endlessly covered for her. She believed her actions were astute, effectively sheltering herself behind their compassion. But astuteness is no match for enduring patience. I made no attempt to seize her funds. It was wholly unnecessary. I simply retrieved a digital archive I had been painstakingly compiling for years, screenshots detailing her extravagant purchases, falsified receipts she presented to my parents, electronic messages boasting about costly designer accessories while she simultaneously maintained the pretense of being unable to afford basic provisions, a thorough chronicle of her deceit. My parents had always disregarded my gentle suggestions, but proof is significantly more persuasive when it is meticulously assembled and delivered all at once into the appropriate hands. The appropriate hands belonged to her former husband, Mark, the man she still owed court-mandated child support to, the one she perpetually claimed she was too destitute to compensate. He had been waiting for definitive substantiation. I furnished him with everything: transaction logs, screenshots, precise timelines. And I did not send it anonymously. I wanted her to know precisely where the forthcoming upheaval originated. 4 hours later, my phone vibrated. Mark, her ex, had already filed the necessary paperwork with his legal counsel. The screenshots I provided were akin to igniting a tinderbox. Her name, her lies, her misappropriated funds all were poised for exposure in family jurisdiction. I could almost hear the defensive walls around her begin to fissure, but my plan was incomplete. I made a discreet call to her chief executive, not a stranger, but a longtime acquaintance of mine. I forwarded the identical evidentiary package. Lisa had been falsifying overtime declarations, illicitly securing reimbursement for expenses that simply did not exist. My acquaintance acted immediately. Corporate fraud is universally The first precedent fell much more rapidly than I had anticipated. My sister contacted me in a state of utter frenzy, her voice trembling violently. "Did you instigate this?" I remained entirely composed. "Instigate what? You have consistently demonstrated a proficiency for digging your own pits." A profound silence followed, the type of stillness where comprehension finally dawns. When my parents called, demanding immediate explanations, I transmitted the identical digital folder to them. I offered no argument. I simply permitted them to scroll through years of evidence they had deliberately chosen to overlook. The deep sympathy they had previously afforded her entirely dissipated, replaced by a cold, distinctly unfamiliar disillusionment. For the first time in his life, their cherished daughter appeared irrevocably blemished. By nightfall, she had been terminated from her employment. Her ex's attorney was relentlessly pursuing her with legal actions. My parents had definitively ceased their financial support, and this entire cascade of events occurred because she lacked the self-control to avoid stealing from a little boy's savings vessel. I watched my son drift into sleep, tightly clutching a new, clean savings jar I had acquired for him, his name boldly inscribed across it. This time, I quietly vowed no one would ever touch it. He did not need to know the intricate details of my actions only, that his small accumulation of funds was safe again. Certain realities are simply too weighty for young sensibilities. Justice does not always necessitate a public spectacle. My sister's decline was not loud, but it was absolute and systematic. She presumed she could strip away a child's innocence and escape without consequence. Instead, she was forced to learn how swiftly a life constructed upon deceit can completely disintegrate. Every single coin she took became a structural component in the wall that ultimately confined her. Do I harbor any remorse? Not for an instant. She told my son he was unworthy of his own savings. I demonstrated to Lisa precisely what it feels like to lose something she believed was permanently hers to keep. Ultimately, I never raised my voice. It was wholly unnecessary. I simply enabled her to completely self-destruct with a slight impetus. That is the profound nature of retribution. It does not need to be loud to be entirely devastating. Sometimes it only requires 4 hours for a person's entire world to fracture, and when it does, you find greater peace, knowing that justice finally articulated the truth. You were never compelled to utter